Welcome, traveler, to boring history for sleepwear. The past whispers instead of shouts, and the quiet details of forgotten lives unfold like a gentle dream. Tonight we step far back, beyond pyramids and palaces, beyond cities and kings, to a time when the world was wild and humans lived by firelight and instinct. This is not a story of empires or inventions, but of the women whose hands shaped the fabric of early life softly, silently, and without a written word.
The Cavewomen, the mothers, daughters, healers, gatherers, and dreamers of a time long before memory. So wrap yourself in a warm blanket of imagination. Let the flicker of the fire dance in your mind. With every slow breath, feel yourself slipping into the hush of prehistory where the only sound is the wind through trees, the crackle of embers, and the soft rhythm of footsteps in the dust. Let us begin. Cave is dark but not silent.
Not for danger, though. Danger is always possible, but for the shape of the world. They are answered not with words, but with instinct and observation, the shifting weight of air, the smell of wet bark, the hush or hum of the forest outside. She places a hand over it, steady and calm, and the child sighs back into sleep. There is no alarm to wake them, no bells, no sharp start. The sun will rise when it rises, and they will move when they must. What kind of day will this be? Is the wind strong or gentle? Are the animals quiet or restless? Has the rain come? Has it passed? Outside, beyond the lip of stone and brush, the world has begun to stir. The light in the cave is dim, and only the mouth of it where moss and brush drape like a natural curtain shows. Signs of the changing sky. A fog hangs low among the trunks, and the stream at the bottom of the slope glints softly, winding like a silver ribbon. She stands at the cave's edge for a long moment, breathing. Red embers blink up at her, like tired eyes opening after a long sleep. She feeds the fire gently, a few dry twigs, a tuft of moss, a pinnacone. The fire responds slowly, then with sudden gratitude. Flames rise in little orange fingers, licking the air with hunger. Smoke curls upward, warm and familiar. There is only this moment, and then the next. But the light is coming all the same. Slowly, persistently, it creeps across the landscape, painting it in pale hues of blue and gold. With a flat rock, she begins to crush them. The sound is rhythmic and soft. The child sits up, watching her with sleep-heavy eyes. They eat with quiet gratitude, chewing slowly, using their hands, sharing pieces of food without needing to ask. But there is community. There is the unspoken ritual of beginning. The air smells faintly of ash, pine, and earth. Together, they mash, stir, and prepare the morning meal. Not for vanity, but for ease. Loose hair catches in branches, dips into food, hides insects. Braiding is practically and soothing. The mother closes her eyes as the small fingers work through her strands, pulling gently, twisting slowly. There is no hurry. There is no expectation of variety. The food is what they have. It is enough. A cough, a groan. The day is beginning, not with ceremony, but with necessity. Birds begin to chirp, softly at first, and then with more confidence. A squirrel darts from one branch to another, leaving a trail of shaking leaves behind. They have shaped it into a home not with bricks or beams, but with memory. Here is the place where they eat. Here the stones arranged in a circle for the fire. It's not in its current form perhaps, but in its essence. It is burned every day since the cold season began. Someone is always tending it. If it goes out, it must be relit perhaps, with flint and tinder, or with coal carried from another hearth. Fire is not merely heat, it is safety. It is the barrier between night and death, between the wild and the home. There, the niche in the wall, where dry roots are stored in a leather pouch. Every surface has been touched. Every corner carries the story of use. She moves quietly, so as not to disturb the others. She checks the food stores. Dried berries, some roots, the leftover shank of meat tied and hung above the fire's reach.
Air
Is a gourd of water from yesterday, still mostly full. She takes a sip. It is cold and clear. A man her mate sleeps still, his arm flung loosely over a pile of furs. A girl of perhaps 7 or 8 is curled near the fire pit, her hair tangled like vines, a small piece of wood clutched in her hand. She sleeps like a stone, deep and unmoving. It is gray now, lightening slightly, the edge of day beginning to glow behind the trees. Her body does not ache, Not exactly, but there is a heaviness in the muscles, the kind that comes from living a life of constant use. The ground is cold beneath her feet, but she does not flinch. Her soles are tough from years of walking, gathering, chasing, carrying. The cold is not a warning. It is only a reminder. This is the world. Does not change for her. She must move with it. Adapt to it. Honor it. Her arms are strong. Her legs lean and hard. Her hands are calloused, but still nimble, not loudly, not with fanfare or force, but slowly, almost timidly, as though the day itself were waking from a deep and ancient dream. Beneath her, the earth is hard, but not unfriendly. It holds the memory of warmth from her body and the breath of those who sleep beside her. This, to her, is comfort. This, to her, is home. The embers in the hearth have long since dulled to a faint red glow, tucked beneath a blanket of ash. A curl of smoke rises slowly from the coals, winding up into the soft darkness above like a spirit unsure of its way. Somewhere in the trees, a lone thrush offers a cautious call, not quite a song, just a soft, fluttering note that seems to ask, "Is it morning yet?" Inside the cave, the air is cool and damp. It smells faintly of earth, smoke, and the faded warmth of yesterday's fire. She lies still on her sleeping mat, a rough but familiar bundle of woven grasses. Animal hides and moss layered carefully against the cold stone floor. Her eyes have not yet opened, but she is awake in the quiet way of those who live close to the land. She listens first. These are the questions she knows without needing to speak. Beside her, a child stirs. A small foot presses gently against her thigh, seeking warmth. She rolls slowly onto her back, and then to a sitting position. She rubs her eyes, not with frustration, but with ritual. As she rises, she does not complain. There is no voice in her mind asking for more sleep, no resistance to the work ahead. The cave is not large, but it is theirs. She steps outside. Outside, the trees stretch overhead in a greenish canopy, still dark with the last traces of night. It is not a dramatic sunrise. There are no bursts of color, no fire on the horizon. She squats beside the fire pit and begins to stir the ashes with a stick. This fire is old. She warms her hands above it, then cups them together and holds them to her face. She breathes into them. Behind her, the cave is beginning to stir. A low murmur of voices, the rustle of hide garments being adjusted. She moves back inside and begins the small tasks of morning. From a bundle tucked in the shadows, she removes a stone bowl and a few pieces of sun-dried tuber. The girl does not speak, but she moves beside her mother and begins to help. Soon, the others join. A slow gathering of figures around the fire, their breath misting in the chill air. There is no table, no plates, no utensils, beyond what has been shaped by hand. When the food is gone, the child begins to braid her mother's hair. Outside, the light has strengthened. The fog is lifting. Somewhere beyond the trees, a deer cries out. Farther still, a wolf howls in reply. The world is vast and ancient. It does not care for humans, yet it allows them to live, with quiet strength. With the soft, enduring power of those who do what must be done, not for glory, but for life. To build their little fires, to braid their hair, to share food and warmth and breath. And in that space between danger and peace, cave women like her rise each day, not with fear, not with resentment, but with calm resilience. She looks toward the sun, now peeking fully above the treetops. The light falls across her face, warm and gold. She stands now, ready. The fire is burning again. The meal is finished. The others are preparing gathering baskets, checking tools, adjusting wraps. There is work to do. It does not crackle with energy. It breathes, slow and shallow, like a sleeper not quite ready to rise. Thin branches, strips of bark, dry pine needles, cradled in a shallow stone bowl. The fire has its appetite, and she knows it well, not too little, or it will fade. There is an art to this quiet balance that cannot be taught in words. The sticks catch, glowing at their edges, then igniting in a soft whoosh of warmth. Smoke rises, curling around her like a shawl. It must be learned by doing, over many mornings. Fire lives again. Darkness held predators, wolves, bears, snakes. It held cold that could freeze fingers, take breath, still hearts. It held the unknown. First, the needles she scatters them gently over the embers. Then the bark, laid across like a roof. Then the sticks, one by one, placed like the bones of a ribcage over the heart of the flame. Roots to find, water to carry, children to guide. The first line drawn between us and everything else. Around the fire there was heat, there was vision. The light dances on the stone walls, bringing color to the shadows. A few figures begin to rise from their sleeping mats, seasoned and dry perfect for a long burn. It lands with a satisfying thud, and the fire accepts it gladly. Roots, nuts, and scraps of dried meat or marrow-rich bone. Sometimes there is something fresh and egg found in the woods, a bird trapped the day before, but most often it's simple fare. The fire does not mind, cooks what it is given. One of the children sits up, rubbing her eyes with tiny fists. The others stretch, groan, murmur greetings. She places them near the edge of the flames so they'll warm evenly. Next, she checks the hanging pouch of herbs. A bit of wild thyme, some mint, a twist of dried fungus that helps with pain. She sniffs them each in turn, then selects what's needed. There was a place to cook, to speak, to laugh, to dream. Listening to the soft warnings, not that branchett's too green, not too much at once, no formal instruction, but she knows what to use by color, by scent, by memory. Don't forget to feed it before you leave, hides to scrape. The children will sit near it to braid twine or carve soft wood. Wounds may be cleaned here with a heated blade or a poultice warmed in a bowl. Tools will be hardened, sinew will be softened. Bones will be cracked for their marrow, of the spirits that walk the wind, of the animals that gave their lives, the stars and the moon and the blood of the earth. There is no ceremony, but there is reverence. Tending the fire is not a task, it is a responsibility, is sacred. It is life. Food to prepare, wounds to tend. Shadows on the wall become figures dancing, running, fighting, birthing. Every spark is a memory, every flicker a whisper. But for this one quiet moment she breathes again, deeply. The stones that border the hearth are smooth from years of use, darkened by soot and ash. This fire, or one like it, has burned here since the season turned cold. Maybe longer, it has been fed, protected, whispered to. And in return, it has given warmth, safety, light, and food. And in that ancient glow, nothing else matters. The day has begun. The quiet fire at the heart of human survival, the fire is still burning, but it is hungry. It flickers lazily orange and yellow fingers reaching up from a pile of glowing embers, barely holding on to the shape of a flame. But she is ready, and the fire waits for her. The cavewoman moves carefully around the fire pit, her feet soundless on the packed earth. She kneels beside it now, as she has done every morning since she was old enough to be trusted with its care. From a pile nearby, she gathers the fuel prepared the night before. She leans in, close. Her hair brushes against her cheek, and her breath is warm on the fire. She exhales slowly, steadily. It's not too much, or she'll smother it. The fire responds. It grows. A spark, a snap, a sudden surge of yellow light. The bark begins to curl and blacken. She sits back on her heels and watches. In the world of her ancestors, before the fire, the night was a dangerous thing. But the fire changed everything. It was the first human boundary, the first wall, the first door. And it was women more often than not who kept that boundary intact. She remembers learning from her mother, her grandmother, watching their hands lay bark and pine cones with care. They spoke of the fire as if it were a child or a spirit, or both, because it needed care, and because it gave back. With the flames rising now, the cave grows warmer. The fire draws them together. She adds a larger log, one she split herself last moon when the men were away hunting. Soon, over this same flame, breakfast will be prepared. She reaches for the cooking stones flat, dark pieces of basalt smoothed by years of heat. There is no written recipe. Cooking, like firekeeping, is an instinct handed down through the hands of women. But the hearth is not only for cooking. Later in the day, it will be used to smoke meat or dry damp clothing. And in the evening, the fire will become something else again. It will be a storyteller. The old woman, gray-haired and bent like a willow will, sit beside it, and speak of the long-ago times. The children will listen with wide eyes. The mothers will listen too, even though they've heard the stories 100 times. Because the fire, when it speaks, always sounds a little different. Its voice crackles, shifts, rises, and falls. It creates movement even in stillness. But now, in the cool breath of early morning, the hearth is still humble. It warms the hands. It dries the hair. It signals the beginning of things. She picks up a small clay pot, rough but useful, and fills it with water from the hide pouch near the entrance. She places it beside the fire. Soon it will steam. When it does, she'll add a handful of roots and a pinch of salt from the last trade. The others are moving now. The girl with the sleepy eyes is helping her little brother put on his wrap. The old woman is blowing gently on a cup of broth. The man broad-shouldered, slow to wakes, sharpening his spear outside in the morning light. They are all here, and they are all moving toward the same point, the fire. This hearth is not simply a tool. It is a gathering place. No one praises her. No one gives thanks. But they feel it in their warmth, in their full stomachs, in the light that guides them through the night. She blows softly on a weak corner of the flame, nursing it into life. A spark jumps. A new flame catches. A compass. A heartbeat. She crouches again, adjusting one of the stones. She smiles barely, a flicker of pride, of peace. She has done this every day, nearly all her life. She is the keeper of the hearth, and the fire, like the world itself, rises with her. The ritual of nourishment in a world without kitchens. The fire is ready now, glowing alive, obedient. It crackles softly, warming the cool, dewy air that drifts into the cave mouth. Outside, the early sun glimmers through the trees like golden mist. Shadows stretch long across the forest floor, and the tools of nourishment spread around her like an ancient altar. Inside the cave pulses with gentle activity. The day has begun in earnest. She sits beside the hearth, cross-legged, calm. Her movements are unhurried, deliberate, neither lazy nor rushed. There is no need for speed here. There is only the rhythm of necessity. There is no storehouse, no abundance. Every bite matters. Food must be prepared not for pleasure but for strength. They are not loud. Hunger has made them quiet, but there is no panic in them. They trust the ritual. They have seen it 100 times. They know it always leads to food. A handful of roots. A pinch of the dark berries. A sliver of meat, enough for flavor, not excess. She doesn't need to think. He spills half of it, laughs, then tries again, failing. Trying again. She watches him from the corner of her eye. She says nothing. He will learn. That is how learning happens here, not with scolding, not with lectures, but through doing and watching, through quiet repetition, through time. But she checks it anyway, her fingers brushing over each piece. Some are damp with dew. She sets these aside to dry. The old woman, who walks slowly and eats less, needs food she can chew without pain, so the roots are boiled longer. The berries are mashed into a paste. A little honey is added, collected weeks ago with the help of smoke and courage. Others are perfect, and she feeds a few more into the fire to maintain the heat. The meal must cook thoroughly. Raw roots are hard to digest. A little water, collected from the spring before dawn, is poured in. The mixture hisses softly as it cooks. She stirs it with a carved wooden stick, stirring not to impress, not to create flavor for delight, but to make something that gives strength, clarity, life. The fire gently kisses the stone, and soon steam begins to curl upward in lazy spirals. Each one of them connected to her not by blood alone, but by shared breath, shared food, shared days. Her fingers know the measures by memory and instinct. It is earthy, warm, rich with smoke and time. The children's eyes are wide, no utensils. Fingers and mouths do the work. No one talks much. It is not rude. It is respectful. Eating is not a social performance here. It is survival. And survival, for all its simplicity, is sacred. She gives the smallest portion to the youngest child, who takes it without complaint. The largest goes to the hunter, who has returned weary from his night watch. One of them shifts closer to the fire, fidgeting with his hands. The pouch is animal hide, smoke-cured and stitched tightly with gut cord, weather-resistant and pest-proof. And yet even in this there is grace. This is the morning ritual, sacred repetition. It is an unspoken rule among those who live close to hunger. Long before there were words for kitchen or recipe, there was this: a woman, a fire. She begins by untying the storage pouch that hangs from a low wooden frame, a primitive shelf made from forked branches and sinew-laced poles. Inside are the fruits of many days of labor: cracked nuts, cleaned and sorted, sun-dried roots, sliced thin, shriveled, berries dark, tart, still sticky with sugar. A few finger-length pieces of smoked meat, lean and sharp-smelling, and in a small stone bowl wrapped in moss, crushed salt crystals, traded moons ago from a distant river settlement. Each item is precious. Not because it is rare, but because of the work it took to gather, process, preserve, and protect it. She selects with care. Behind her, the children sit near the fire, their voices soft. She sets a shallow clay pot course, hand-formed, marked by the impressions of fingers onto the flat stone near the edge of the fire. Into this, she drops the sliced roots, the berries, a fragment of meat. This meal is simple, but it is a miracle. Across the cave, a boy tries to mimic her mixing a few scraps in a smaller pot. She remembers doing the same at his age, sitting beside her mother, mimicking, stirring too fast, adding too much, laughing. Now it is her turn to be watched, and so the cycle turns. There is no firewood gathering this morning. Last night's pile was large enough. As she waits, she prepares a second patah thicker mash for the elders. This act of tenderness is not spoken of. It is simply done. To feed someone softer food is a gesture of quiet love. To feed the old is to remember what they once did for you. By now, the first pot is bubbling softly, the aroma rising into the air. She scoops out portions into small wooden bowls, each one carved by hand, each marked with subtle signs of ownership. A line here, a notch there. She eats last. This is not hierarchy, it is care. The feeder must ensure others are full before feeding herself. The food is hot, and everyone eats slowly. There are no spoons. She watches them eat. Her children, her mate, the old woman, the orphan girl taken in last season. This is the meaning of family in the cave, not just kin, but community.
A circle of warmth held together by hunger in the hands that answer it.
Later, she will clean the bowls with dry grass and ash. She will gather more roots, berries, nuts. Perhaps she will snare a rabbit or climb a tree for eggs. The food never rests. The fire never rests. And so, neither does she. But for this moment, the morning meal is done. The morning has matured. The warmth of the hearth lingers behind them, tucked safely inside the cave. Now, it is time to leave the home fire, to step into the wild, not as a stranger, but as a participant. It is stained dark at the bottom from years of use, from berries crushed and sap leaked, and mushrooms nestled gently within. There is warmth in her belly, in her bones. There is peace in the stillness of the fire. And there is strength in knowing that, even in the smallest tasks, gathering, stirring, feeding, she has shaped a day for all of them. The hearth flickers. A hand touches hers, small, grateful. She smiles again, barely. It is enough. Her eldest daughter is with her barefoot, alert, quiet. A girl still growing, not yet a woman, but already learning the ancient choreography of the gatherer's path. Today is not a lesson in words. It is a lesson in watching, sensing, remembering. Hands to the earth, eyes to the forest. The sun has risen fully now, though its light is still soft, filtered through the dense canopy of leaves that stretch high above the forest floor. She carries no weapon, no spear, no club. She knows what to look for. A patch of clover trampled slightly. She pulls gently at the stalks, loosening the soil with her fingers. One by one, they come up, white bulbs caked in dirt, their roots trailing like hair. A bush with its leaves chewed only halfway, signs that animals have passed. Useful, later. But the two of them step beyond the familiar. They descend the slope from the cave's entrance, duck beneath low branches, and enter the wide-bellied forest that feeds them.
Odd.
What she holds instead is a basket woven from dry reeds and softened vine, patched in places with strands of bark and leather cord. She carries it like an extension of herself, because it is. She plucks a few places, some in her mouth, and chews slowly. She doesn't eat to fill her belly now. She eats to taste. To test, she does not walk alone. Behind them, the rest of the community tends to other work fire maintenance, tool repairs, water collection, childcare. It is quiet here, not silent, but thoughtful. These are not the sweet kind. These are for dye, not food. The scent of damp earth rises with each step. Here she searches for roots, burdock, wild yam, cattail. They are harder to find, more work to unearth, but worth it. She crushes one between her fingers to demonstrate, shows the purple stain on her skin. The girl mimics her. They nod together, understanding. She's listening not with her ears, but with her body. The way the ground yields beneath her fingers tells her what may lie beneath. The way the plants around her grow tells her what water lies nearby. She tests the firmness, the gills beneath the cap, the color of the stem. A reminder, a memory. A small laugh shared when the girl pulls a plant that turns out to be nothing at all. But mostly they are quiet, because the forest speaks louder when humans are silent. The woman smiles. One day, the girl will understand. For now, it is enough to see, enough to remember. One type she recognizes is a least small, brown, with a slightly curved cap. Edible, even tasty, when roasted. She gathers these carefully and places them in a separate pouch inside the basket, away from the onions and leaves. Birds sing, but distantly. She thanks it all silently, but sincerely. Here grows a small patch of mint, low to the ground, sharp and clean-smelling. She takes only a little. Never everything, always some left behind. For the next day, for the next person, for the forest itself. The weight is familiar. Welcome. The woman drinks with cupped hands. The cold water stings her palms and tastes of stone and sky. She washes a few of the gathered plants, shakes them dry. She breathes. A squirrel chitters high in the trees. She scoops a few into a pouch. These are not her favorite food, but they are rich in fat, and when fire roasted, they are a gift to the body. Insects hum around the roots of fallen logs. Time is measured by the shifting of light through leaves, the hunger in the belly, the weight in the basket. And beneath all of it is the forest's own breath, a constant hush, like waves across a green sea. The cave woman scans the ground as she walks, her eyes always moving. Not in panic, but in practiced awareness. She kneels at the base of a tree where wild onions grow. Their smell is faint, sweet, and sharp. She knocks them gently against a stone, brushes off the earth, and places them in her basket. The girl kneels beside her, watching, another lesson silent, simple, enduring. Not far away, they find a patch of sorrel, small, green, heart-shaped leaves that taste of lemon and soil. She offers one to the girl, who accepts it without question. There is no fear of poison. This is a place they know as well as their own skin. But knowledge must still be refreshed, confirmed. Nature is generous, but not always gentle. The forest offers more. They come upon a patch of berry steeny, black, glistening. The woman crouches and studies them carefully. Nearby, they find wild mushrooms. This is where caution becomes instinct. The cave woman crouches lower, examining the shapes, the colors, the smells. She doesn't pick them right away, but others she leaves untouched. She has learned through trial, through community memory, through loss, that the forest is full of gifts and traps. Some mushrooms soothe pain, others steal breath. Deeper in the woods, the ground becomes softer, richer. She stops often, crouching low, pressing her hand to the soil, tilting her head. Everything is connected. Everything has a voice. And she has learned how to hear it. Sometimes they speak softly to each other, the woman and the girl. They stop beside a fallen log. The woman slices it open with a sharpened stone and exposes a nest of insect's fat, white grubs writhing in the wet wood. The girl watches, her face a mixture of fascination and mild disgust. Hours pass like this. Slowly, gently. There is no clock. They sit for a moment beside a stream. The girl splashes her feet. This pause is also part of the work. To gather without gratitude is to take without giving. She listens to the stream, to the rustling of leaves, to the creaking of an old tree in the wind. Before returning, they check one last spot of familiar clearing, half hidden by ferns. The basket is full now. Not overflowing, but complete. She ties it with cord and shifts it over her shoulder. They walk back the way they came, their feet pressing new memories into the soft earth. They carry more than food, carry stories. They carry knowledge. As they climb the slope toward the cave, the light has changed again, brighter, warmer, full of noon. The fire is visible from the cave mouth, and so is the smoke rising like a silent signal. Home is still here. The world has not ended. And it hasn't, because she returned, because she gathered, because she listened. Where knowledge lived before books inside, the shadows stretch longer. Curling around the stones and firs like sleepy animals, the morning's journey into the forest is behind her. The basket of wild foods, onions, mushrooms, herbs, and roots sits near the fire, waiting to be cleaned, sorted, and cooked. The cave is cooler now, but that task can wait. For now there is another duty, calling one just as old as fire, just as sacred as hunting. The children need watching. And more than that, they need shaping. There are no school bells or chalkboards, no work shifts or daycare centers. There is only life, and life is the classroom. Every elder is a teacher, every child a student, and every woman a keeper of culture. She is not alone in this task. It is a thread that weaves through everything. In their world, there is no such thing as a stay-at-home mother, because the home is the entire world. The stories hold the group's memories, its warnings, its values. They're pretending to skin a rabbit using a piece of bark. The fir is a clump of grass, the rabbit a stick. In them are lessons about bravery, patience, greed, cooperation, and respect. These tales are the first textbooks. They are medicine too. Childcare is not an isolated act. She tends to children while pounding herbs. She holds a baby while warming water over the fire. The child frowns, her small fingers clumsy, but she tries. The woman doesn't correct her harshly. She simply demonstrates once, then lets the child explore on her own. Instead, they are invited to feel the chill of an unlit fire, to understand directly why the task matters. A quiet one, but it lasts. They are led by the older children, those who are not quite grown, but eager to prove they are. This, too, is part of learning. Leadership begins young. The group expects much from them, not in pressure, but in participation. To smell the wind and guess where it has come from. To balance on one foot and throw a stone. To make noise when walking through thick underbrush so as not to startle a bear. Most are strapped to their backs or nestled against a hip with a wrap of animal hide or woven bark. The group watches each child together, nudging them into acceptable behavior, not with shame, but with stories, with rituals, with consequences tied to real life. Their bodies remain close touch, is constant. There is no such thing as sleep training, no separate rooms or bottles. There is only skin and warmth and rhythm. The mother's heart, the rise and fall of her chest, the beat of her footsteps. She teaches through gestures, songs, games, and quiet repetition. Rocked babies through the night, soothed fevers with herbs, sang soft songs in a language older than words. A bird, the creak of trees, the shuffle of her own breath. Songs about the moon. She is not her daughter by blood, but that doesn't matter. All children are cared for by all women. Kinship is broader here. Child with no mother is not motherless, not truly. The trees, the coming rains. Supper is not yet ready, but the children are fed small pieces roasted roots, berries, soft bits of fish. This one, she says gently, grows near water. Look for the dark cap and the small white ring here. A small song begins, one that the group knows well. It is older than any living person, but familiar. Some join in, others just listen. Her fingers trace the shape. Never pick the others. They are poison. You will sleep and not wake. No one is excluded. No child goes hungry if it can be helped. The food is shared. The first time she became a mother, she was terrified. But over time, the fear gave way to knowing. Not confidence, necessarily, but trust. Trust in her body, trust in the women around her, trust in the patterns of life. It is not work in the modern sense, it is presence, a constant state of attention and care. A toddler crawls toward the fire pit. Without raising her voice, she gently redirects him, offering a wooden spoon to play with instead. The boy clutches it with chubby hands and bangs it against a flat stone, giggling. He doesn't know yet that this game will one day become real work. For now, the rhythm of play is enough. Nearby, a group of older children, 5 or 6 of them, sit in a circle around an older woman. The group's unofficial storyteller, her face is lined with years, her hair streaked with gray, but her voice is warm and alive. She tells a story in low tones, something about a spirit in the mountain, or a bear that dreamed of walking like a man. The children are spellbound. The cave woman listens from a distance, sorting leaves. She's heard this story before many times, but she knows it matters. Later, she watches a pair of girls mimicking adult tasks with bits of stone and twine. She smiles to herself. Yes. This is how she learned to not by sitting still, but by doing, by watching, by failing gently under the eyes of someone who cared. She calls one of the girls over and hands her a small task, separating usable leaves from a bundle of wild sorrel, because mistakes are not punished. Here they are observed, absorbed, gently corrected through repetition. That is the rhythm of prehistoric teaching. Slow, patient, kind. Infants are never far from their mothers. The cave woman has done this many times. Now she passes that trust on. Even discipline is different here. There is no yelling, no striking. There is guidance, firm when needed, but never cruel. If a child refuses to help gather kindling, they are not punished outright. It is a slow method. The afternoon stretches onward. At one point, the children are taken outside, to the edges of the clearing near the cave. The cave woman joins them later, her basket now empty, her hands free. Together, they teach the children to identify tracks in the dirt, rabbit, deer, fox. And in quieter moments, they teach listening. "Stop," she whispers to a child, holding up her hand. "What do you hear?" The child listens. Really listens, wind. This too is a lesson. As the sun begins to dip, the group gathers again around the fire, and the food is taught. The woman lifts a piece of mushroom. The children nod, solemn. This is how survival passes from one generation to the next, not through formal lessons, but through repetition, through ritual, through respect. As evening arrives, the teaching continues, though now it takes a softer shape. One child plays a bone flute. Another drums on a hollow log. The cave woman sings softly, braiding a girl's hair. As they climb the slope toward the cave, the light has changed again, brighter, warmer, full of noon. The fire is visible from the cave mouth, and so is the smoke rising like a silent signal. Home is still here. The world has not ended. And it hasn't, because she returned, because she gathered, because she listened. Where knowledge lived before books inside, the shadows stretch longer. Curling around the stones and firs like sleepy animals, the morning's journey into the forest is behind her. The basket of wild foods, onions, mushrooms, herbs, and roots sits near the fire, waiting to be cleaned, sorted, and cooked. The cave is cooler now, but that task can wait. For now, there is another duty, calling one just as old as fire, just as sacred as hunting. The children need watching. And more than that, they need shaping. There are no school bells or chalkboards, no work shifts or daycare centers. There is only life, and life is the classroom. Every elder is a teacher, every child a student, and every woman a keeper of culture. She is not alone in this task. It is a thread that weaves through everything. In their world, there is no such thing as a stay-at-home mother, because the home is the entire world. The stories hold the group's memories, its warnings, its values. They're pretending to skin a rabbit using a piece of bark. The fir is a clump of grass. The rabbit a stick. In them are lessons about bravery, patience, greed, cooperation, and respect. These tales are the first textbooks. They are medicine too. Childcare is not an isolated act. She tends to children while pounding herbs. She holds a baby while warming water over the fire. The child frowns, her small fingers clumsy, but she tries. The woman doesn't correct her harshly. She simply demonstrates once, then lets the child explore on her own. Instead, they are invited to feel the chill of an unlit fire, to understand directly why the task matters. A quiet one, but it lasts. They are led by the older children, those who are not quite grown, but eager to prove they are. This, too, is part of learning. Leadership begins young. The group expects much from them, not in pressure, but in participation. To smell the wind and guess where it has come from. To balance on one foot and throw a stone. to make noise when walking through thick underbrush so as not to startle a bear. Most are strapped to their backs or nestled against a hip with a wrap of animal hide or woven bark. The group watches each child together, nudging them into acceptable behavior, not with shame, but with stories, with rituals, with consequences tied to real life. Their bodies remain close touch, is constant. There's no such thing as sleep training, no separate rooms or bottles. There's only skin and warmth and rhythm. The mother's heart, the rise and fall of her chest, the beat of her footsteps. She teaches through gestures, songs, games, and quiet repetition. Rocked babies through the night, soothed fevers with herbs, sang soft songs in a language older than words. A bird, the creak of trees, the shuffle of her own breath. Songs about the moon. She is not her daughter by blood, but that doesn't matter. All children are cared for by all women. Kinship is broader here. Child with no mother is not motherless, not truly. The trees, the coming rains. Supper is not yet ready, but the children are fed small pieces roasted roots, berries, soft bits of fish. This one, she says gently, grows near water. Look for the dark cap and the small white ring here. A small song begins, one that the group knows well. It is older than any living person, but familiar. Some join in, others just listen. Her fingers trace the shape. Never pick the others. They are poison. You will sleep and not wake. No one is excluded. No child goes hungry if it can be helped. The food is shared. The first time she became a mother, she was terrified. But over time, the fear gave way to knowing. Not confidence, necessarily, but trust. Trust in her body, trust in the women around her, trust in the patterns of life. It is not work in the modern sense, it is presence, a constant state of attention and care. A toddler crawls toward the fire pit. Without raising her voice, she gently redirects him, offering a wooden spoon to play with instead. The boy clutches it with chubby hands and bangs it against a flat stone, giggling. He doesn't know yet that this game will one day become real work. For now, the rhythm of play is enough. Nearby, a group of older children, 5 or 6 of them, sit in a circle around an older woman. The group's unofficial storyteller, her face is lined with years, her hair streaked with gray, but her voice is warm and alive. She tells a story in low tones, something about a spirit in the mountain, or a bear that dreamed of walking like a man. The children are spellbound. The cavewoman listens from a distance, sorting leaves. She's heard this story before many times, but she knows it matters. Later, she watches a pair of girls mimicking adult tasks with bits of stone and twine. She smiles to herself. Yes. This is how she learned to not by sitting still, but by doing, by watching, by failing gently under the eyes of someone who cared. She calls one of the girls over and hands her a small task, separating usable leaves from a bundle of wild sorrel, because mistakes are not punished. Here they are observed, absorbed, gently corrected through repetition. That is the rhythm of prehistoric teaching. Slow, patient, kind. Infants are never far from their mothers. The cavewoman has done this many times. She passes that trust on. Even discipline is different here. There is no yelling, no striking. There is guidance firm when needed, but never cruel. If a child refuses to help gather kindling, they are not punished outright. It is a slow method. The afternoon stretches onward. At one point, the children are taken outside, to the edges of the clearing near the cave. The cave woman joins them later, her basket now empty, her hands free. Together, they teach the children to identify tracks in the dirt trap at Deer Fox. And in quieter moments, they teach listening. "Stop," she whispers to a child, holding up her hand. "What do you hear?" The child listens. Really listens, wind. This too is a lesson. As the sun begins to dip, the group gathers again around the fire, and the food is taught. The woman lifts a piece of mushroom. The children nod, solemn. This is how survival passes from one generation to the next, not through formal lessons, but through repetition, through ritual, through respect. As evening arrives, the teaching continues, though now it takes a softer shape. One child plays a bone flute. Another drums on a hollow log. The cavewoman sings softly, braiding a girl's hair. Stories are told, not the dramatic kind, but slow, winding ones. About rivers that turn to stone. about a woman who sang so sweetly the trees leaned closer. The children drift, half listening, half sleeping. She looks at them, the tiny tribe of Tomorrowland, wonders what they will remember. Will they recall her face? Her voice? Will they remember the story about the owl in winter? Or the way she showed them how to roast grubs without burning them? Will they one day teach their own children to recognize the sorrel leaf and avoid the red-spotted mushroom? She hopes so. It's the closest thing to immortality she has. Later, when the cave has grown quiet, the fire's glow dances on the stone walls, the children are wrapped in furs and laid down to sleep. The cavewoman sits near them, not to control, but to protect. There may be wolves, there may be storms, but she is here. The children breathe slowly, their chests rise and fall in rhythm with the night. And she knows somewhere deep in her bones that this is the most important work of all. Not hunting, not gathering, not even fire, but this, teaching, tending. The long shadows of evening creep in as the wind begins to settle. The world for a moment grows still, but even now there is work to be done, not loud, heroic work like the chase or the hunt, but slow, skilled, thoughtful work. The kind that builds comfort from nothing and weaves safety out of raw earth and bone. Passing the torch without burning the hand, the quiet builders of a rough world at his care, a quieter one, a more intimate one. It is memory. Her first sewing attempts were a mess of twisted knots and holes. But now, the act is second nature. She knows how to pull the thread just enough to close the gap, but not so tight it puckers. She knows which stitches to double up on, which to let lie loose. She hums softly as she works not a song exactly, just a rhythm, sound passed from throat to hand to thread. It is tradition. The light outside the cave dims to a soft amber glow. Different textures for different purposes. Some materials are stiff and thick, used for shoes or outer wraps. Others, like rabbit fur, are incredibly soft to line cradles or wrap newborns. Beside her, a bundle of long sinew strands soak in warm water to soften them. She fingers a needle carved from bone, worn smooth from years of use. Its tip is still sharp, though the eye is chipped slightly. Tonight's task, mending. And like always, her hands are ready. Then it can be cut, stitched, softened further with smoke. She sits just within the circle of firelight, legs crossed, a lump of hide resting across her lap. These are not glamorous tasks, but they are essential. He tore it from collar to hem. It's not badly just enough to let in cold wind. The tools made by women often look different, more delicate, better suited for processing food, weaving, or preparing herbs. They are not lesser, they are simply made with different needs in mind. It is not modern science, but it is knowledge that is passed down through hundreds of generations. A quiet alchemy. And in this world, cold air against bare skin is no small matter. You can soak things in it. Rinse meat, trap fish, sort seeds, store herbs. She decorates them, sometimes not with showy colors, but with little marks that say, I made this a crosshatch, a spiral, a twisted knot. So she sews it back together slowly, carefully using the strong gut thread and that curved bone needle passed down from her mother. Her fingers move like water, pulling one strand over, tucking the next under. The pattern is soothing, a kind of meditation. The tunic she's repairing belongs to one of the younger boys who tripped while playing near a rocky slope. This is not just needlework. We often imagine the past as a brutal place, dirty, disorganized, crude. But this woman's work tells a different story. Her hands are not rough. They are strong, yes, but precise. She learned this skill early, watching her elders, practicing on scraps of hide. A quiet kind of mastery. Clothing in her world is not decoration, it is protection. This is often seen as a man's task, but not always. Women, too, shape tools. Some specialize in it. Their hands are steady, their eyes sharp. They strike the stone at just the right angle to send off flakes, forming a cutting edge thin enough to slice bark or fat. From the wind, from thorns, from the stinging frost of early morning, she works with the materials available: animal hides, feathers, bark fiber, woven grasses, even softened tree moss. She knows how to treat hides using the animal's brain. Yes, The brain because each contains enough natural oils to tan the skin from the same body. The hide is scraped clean, stretched over a wooden frame, and rubbed for hours, days, sometimes until it becomes supple, strong, and warm. Every step is patient. Every part of the animal is used. Nothing is wasted. Beyond clothing, she and her kin craft the tools that shape daily life. A blade does not appear fully formed. It must be chipped from flint, knapped with precision. Some days she reshapes a broken scraper. Other days she grinds stone down to make a smoother edge for tanning skins, and they are theirs. Then there are baskets. Simple, perhaps. Overlooked. But a good basket can change everything. A strong basket means you can carry more berries, roots, kindling, even a child. So she weaves baskets, using long grasses, bark, and thin branches soaked in water to become pliable. Some baskets are round, others flat. Some are sealed with sap to hold liquid. Others are wrapped in hide for warmth. And then, perhaps most sacred of all, comes shelter. Her world has no cities, no brick, no steel. But there are homes. Some dwellings are cave school in summer, warm in winter, dry and dark. Others are tents made of hide, stretched over bones or thick branches, weighted with stones. She knows where to place the smoke hole, so that the fire will breathe without choking the air. She lines the floor with dried leaves, then covers them with woven mats. In the warmer months, she may help build a seasonal shelter near the river, a roundhouse of bent saplings covered in bark and mud. She knows how to lash the beams together using sinew. They are not built to last forever. They are built to serve in need, and then return to the earth. She builds windbreaks from stacked stones. She piles firewood at the entrance. She patches holes with clay, moss, and patience. To the untrained eye, these shelters may look crude. They are alive, breathing structures that bend and sway with the world. And that is enough. Inside these homes, women shape more than walls. They shape spaces. She decides where the fire will go, how far from the sleeping area, where food is stored. Where herbs are hung, where tools are kept, sets the pattern. It is not violent work. It is strategic and quiet and sharp with awareness. Not with words always, but with touch, with a hand pressed to fur. A moment of stillness. Then the skin is saved, the meat smoked, the bones sorted. Everything has a place, not because of design, but because of wisdom. The home is a web of knowledge. It smells of smoke, hide, ash, and earth. Her arms ache from the day, but it is a good ache, the kind that comes from having built something real. Round her others are winding down. Someone stokes the fire. A child curls near her side. She has not fought lions. She has not painted on cave walls. She has not carved idols or written poems. But she has done something quieter, and perhaps even more sacred. She has made life bearable. It's beautiful even. One stitch, one weave, one fire at a time. The sacred thread woven into every day. The night is deep now. The fire in the center of the shelter has settled into a low, pulsing, glow-soft orange coals, a flicker of heat. Outside, the stars blanket the sky in quiet brilliance, undisturbed by lamps or noise or metal. Just starlight, just breath, just silence. In this hush, something ancient stirs. Not fear, not survival, something gentler, something older, wonder, mystery, reverence. This is not just a place of work and rest, it is also a place of spirit. Cavewomen like her kin lives by rhythms. It hums with small sounds, grinding stones, crackling flames, the stir of breath in the night. They make a circle. They sing softly. They rub her back with oil pressed from seeds. They chew bark to ease the pain. They hold her hand through the long hours. It is not quiet, but it is peaceful, and it is her doing. A stone placed at the mouth of the cave when a child is born. Are they prayers? Just memory made visible? No carved stones? But the people feel it. A pit, or a hidden nook in the rock, or sometimes just a bed of leaves beneath a tree. A heaviness in the cave, silence in the forest, spirals, animals with too many legs. Women with swelling bellies, sunbursts, not always but often. Lines like rivers, dots like stars. A feather tied to the ankle of a hunter before the big journey. Message passed, not in sound, but in presence. They comb the hair. They rub the skin with bare fat. They paint the eyelids with charcoal. They may tuck a stone tool in the hand, or tie a small doll of grass and sinew to the wrist. But perhaps they are none of these. Perhaps they are just the echo of human need to mark, to honor, to remember. A bundle of dried herbs burned on the longest night of the year. The turning of the seasons, the flood of spring rivers, the call of migrating birds. These are her calendar, her compass, her sense of time. There are no clocks, no names for days. But she knows deep in her bones when the salmon will return, when the snow will fall, when the earth begins to stir with green again. As the fire burns low, she sets aside her sewing and checks a few traps she's built near the cave's edge, small rock falls, clever loops of vine hidden beneath leaves. Sometimes they catch birds or squirrels, sometimes they catch nothing. But she checks them every evening. Even in the act of hunting, she builds. She constructs the snare, shapes the bait. When an animal is caught, she thanks it. One life becomes many tools. By now, the moon is rising. Stars are sharp and cold. She steps back into the shelter and removes her wrap. Her eyes close slowly. The needle lies beside her. The repaired tunic is folded. The basket is full. The floor is swept. The roof is sealed against the wind. The rhythm of the sun, the waxing and waning of the moon. And with those rhythms come rituals, small, quiet ones. Acts repeated not from logic, but from feeling. Are these spells? She would not call it religion. She might not call it anything at all. It is simply what is done. Birth, for instance, is more than biology. When a woman in the group becomes heavy with child, the others gather around her not with tools or instructions, but with presence. And when the child comes wet, warm, squirming, they wrap it in rabbit fur, smear a little red ochre on its forehead, and whisper its name into the wind. There is no record, no certificate, only breath and touch and the fire. When someone dies, the mood shifts. There are no great funeral pyres. The women clean the body with warm water and fragrant leaves. Then, as twilight falls, they carry the body slowly, carefully, to a resting place, and they pause. Some kneel, some hum.
Oh.
One woman places her palm on the earth, then lifts it to the sky. Is it a farewell, a message, a sign? It doesn't matter. It is meaningful. Within the cave, the walls themselves speak, not in words but in symbols. Painted handprints in red and black. She has seen them since she was a child. She sometimes presses her palm over an ancient handprint and feels something. A link. Who made these? And why, some say, they are hunting magic images meant to summon luck. Others think they are stories, lessons, warnings. And it is often the women who paint. They mix ochre with animal fat. They chew charcoal. They blow pigment through hollowed bone straws to form ghostly shapes. Their fingers are stained for days, but they don't mind. These marks are not for show. They are for the spirit. Fire, too, is sacred. Not merely heat or light, but a center, a heart, a living presence. As the children lean in to hear tales of giants and storms in the first year, she watches their eyes sparkle in the reflection. The fire is not a god, but it is sacred. There are festivals of a sort, not with garlands or parades, but with gathering. Sometimes they paint their faces red. Sometimes they sing until their voices crack. It is not drama, it is devotion. When a woman heals, she does so not with ego, but with connection. Their mother stirs, half smiling. She doesn't scold them. Not tonight. She listens to the wound, the breath, the dream. She speaks to the ancestors. She consults the moon. It may not always work, but when it does, no one questions how, only that it matters. Perhaps most sacred of all is the act of storytelling. Each night, when the fire is warm and the air still, she speaks. Not loudly, not formally, just with memory. Long winters. Empty bellies, illness, loss, uncertainty. These were constant companions. She tells the story of the woman who turned into a tree, of the wolf who loved the moon, the child who could speak to birds. These are not lies, they are not facts. They are truths in a different tongue. The children listen with wide eyes. The elders nod with soft smiles. So when the food was good, the sun was warm, and the little ones were safe, they celebrated. Sometimes with dancing, sometimes with song. sometimes with nothing more than a shared glance and a sudden burst of laughter at something ridiculous. The fire cracks, the cave breathes, and the story becomes part of them. So what did cavewomen believe? It is hard to say. They had no gods carved in gold, no books of law, but they had awe, they had reverence, they had instinct, believed in cycles, in signs, in the breath of the world, the presence of the unseen, and above all, they believed in each other. As the segment ends, we return to our sleeping cavewoman. They wrapped them in scraps of fur, gave them names, built tiny beds from moss. The boys weren't restricted to hunting. In play, all things were possible. These weren't toys like ours today, but they served the same purpose. Comfort, imagination, learning. Races between trees, hide and seek in the ferns. She lies beside her daughter, hand resting gently on the child's belly. Her eyes are closed, but her face is soft. It was silly, pointless, and absolutely delightful. But when the sun was high and the baskets were full, they joined in. A line of ochre still runs along her cheek from earlier leftover from a marking ritual. The fire glows beside her. The stars shimmer above. And somewhere in her dreaming mind, the spirits walk. The ancestors hum. The stories turn like wind through trees. Because even in the harshest times, we still smiled. The wind is soft tonight, like a lullaby whispered through the trees. The moon hangs low over the ancient hills, lighting the earth in silver shadows. The fire in the cave crackles gently, and all around, the tribe settles into quiet slumber. But if you listen carefully, not just with your ears, but with your heart, you can hear echoes that don't belong to fear or hunger. On the solstice, or the full moon, or after a long migration, neighboring bands may meet. The women trade beads made from shells, ochre, feathers, carved bone. They show off new tools. They sing shared songs. There may be dances, feet pounding in the dust, arms waving like reeds. There may be feast-roasted roots, smoked fish, wild honey. Children are named, elders are honored. At night, the women lie on woven mats beside one another, looking up at the sky. They speak in hushed tones of dreams, of spirits, of signs. One saw a raven fly upside down. Another had a dream of red rain. A third woke with a stone in her hand she did not remember holding. None of it makes sense, but all of it matters. Symbols are part of everything. She wears a carved pendant shaped like a spiral. It was her mother's. She touches it when she's afraid. She draws marks in the ash when she feels lost lines that mean nothing or everything. She stacks stones at the edge of a trail, not to guide others, but to say, I was here, I walked this way. This place knew me. Even the simplest actions are heavy with ritual. Grinding grain becomes a chant. Placing a baby on the ground for the first time becomes a ceremony. Leaving food near a tree becomes an offering. No temple, no altar, only life lived with awareness. The women know herbs that stop bleeding, roots that soothe fever, mushrooms that bring visions. She nods. She acknowledges it like greeting an old friend. When she lights the flame each morning, she does so with care. She arranges the dried moss, the bark curls, the flint. She whispers under her breath, perhaps a chant, perhaps just a rhythm passed down from her grandmother. When the fire catches, she does not cheer. At night, when stories are told, the fire becomes a listener. This is not religion as we know it, but it is deeply spiritual. They do not separate the body from the spirit. To them, healing is a full act of conversation with the unseen. Sometimes they wear antler crowns while healing, you can hear, giggling. Somewhere beneath the heavy hide roof, beneath the moss beds and feathered cloaks, a child whispers something silly to his sister. She covers her mouth, trying not to laugh. Because this is not just a place of survival, it is a place of living. And in living, there is joy. We often imagine cave life as brutal, bleak, and joyless. And in truth, there was hardship, but so was laughter. Cavewomen knew this in their bones. Life was short, life was fragile. It didn't need much. Just each other. Let us begin, then, with the children. If you've ever watched a child explore the world for the first time, taste bark, chase a butterfly, laugh at their own toes, you already know what cave children did. They played. Yes, even in a world of stone and danger, there was play. Little girls and boys carved dolls from sticks. Sometimes the children made pretend camps as they mimicked their mothers gathering roots or their fathers throwing spears. The girls weren't limited to cooking. One child tied feathers to her head and declared herself queen of the forest. Another covered himself in mud and pretended to be a bear. A third crawled around with a stick, pretending to track mammoths. Their laughter was bright, ringing out across the clearing like birdsong. And the cavewomen, whether mother, aunt, or elder, watched them with quiet smiles. There were games, too. Simple ones. A pile of pebbles arranged just so, bones tossed in the air and caught on the back of the hand. Some games had rules, others didn't. They weren't always fair, but they brought joy. Sometimes a group of older children would form a circle around a sleeping dog or curled up baby and try to see who could get closest without waking them. The women played as well. Not always, not often. Their hands were full with work. They taught tongue twisters. They competed to balance water on their heads. They told riddles. What has no legs but runs faster than a deer? The river laughter. And of course, there was music. It wasn't made with pianos or flutes, but with bones, stones, and voices. Some cave women carried hollow bird bones that they blew into whistles that mimicked birdsong. Others clapped flat stones together or drummed on the sides of their thighs. One woman in the group always had a voice like honey and smoke. When she sang, everyone listened. The songs weren't just entertainment. They were maps, memories, prayers. But they were also joyful. A common tune might start with a chant of names of animals, people, stars. Then, as the rhythm grew, the Cava children clapped, the hunters stomped their feet, and the women began to sway. Her deer has been caught. The bellies are full. The night is warm. The dancing followed naturally. Imagine it now. The fire blazes high. An elder woman, wrinkled like tree bark, begins to hop from foot to foot, mimicking a frog. The children erupt in peals of laughter. No audience. Just people, being happy, but it made the basket theirs. Someone begins to beat a rhythm on a stretched hide. Child starts to spin. A woman calls out a chant. Another joins, then another. Soon the whole group is dancing. Washing hides in the river turned into splash wars when the elders weren't looking. Some gracefully, some awkwardly. One girl trips over her feet and falls into the arms of her cousin, and they both collapse in giggles. Everyone froze, then burst into laughter as she surfaced, flinging wet hair from her eyes like a goddess of the flood. There is no stage, even if only for a night. Cave women found joy in creating, too. Perhaps it reminded her of something. Perhaps it just brought her peace. The next day, he found his spear painted white and wrapped in feathers. To protect you, the women said, barely hiding their grins. She woke to the laughter of 10 women and laughed right along with them. But she kept it close, tied to her waist with sinew. The child smiled, wiped her nose, and skipped off to find another frog. They wove grasses into mats and baskets, not just for utility, but for beauty. A pattern here, a colored strand there. It wasn't necessary. They shaped beads from shells and teeth. They didn't need necklaces. They wore them anyway, because beauty is reason enough. There was no cruelty. It's only affection disguised as mischief. One woman carved a small bear from ivory. It had no use. It didn't hold water, it didn't chop wood. Why? Foxes who lingered at the edge of the camp and were tossed scraps. One girl even kept a frog in a shell bowl and named it Croaker. Joy doesn't need a reason. The surprise of a bird's egg nestled in grass. The shapes of clouds in the sky. Look, that one looks like a bison. Even the most mundane tasks held little pockets of delight. Gathering berries became a competition. Who could find the ripest, the biggest, the sweetest? Grinding grain became rhythmic, even musical. A lullaby hummed into the curls of a sleeping child. These weren't grand gestures. They were quiet acts of love. It was also a playground, a mystery, a teacher. One day while cleaning fish, a young woman slipped and landed in the river with a scream. She'd rest her forehead against their trunks and whisper her worries. Another would talk to the stars. She'd give them names. Old. Beautiful names, and tell the children stories about which one was her grandmother watching over her. In the warmth of another hand, in the silly noise a squirrel makes when it's angry, that night the story was retold 5 times. Each version was funnier than the last. Then there was teasing, kind, harmless teasing. A deeply human thing. One woman had a habit of snoring loudly, so one evening her sisters arranged sticks around her sleeping mat to look like a nest and called her mother Owl. Another time, a man claimed to have seen a spirit in the woods. No one was humiliated. They were pets. Not just dogs, though dogs were there, curled beside the fire, ears twitching in dreams, but also birds with broken wings who were nursed back to health. When Croaker died, she cried. Her mother helped her bury it near a tree and whispered that its spirit had returned to the rain. Joy is resilient. And then there was love. Romantic, yes, but also tenderness. Between sisters, between mothers and daughters, between old women and small boys who weren't even their kin. A touch on the arm. A warm rock handed to a shivering friend. And love, dear traveler, is joy. Even the landscape brought smiles. It's a first crocus poking through snow. No, it's your nose. It's more laughter. The natural world wasn't just a threat. One woman would talk to trees, not with words, but with touch. And whether or not it was true, it made her smile. So what did cave women do all day? They worked, they hunted, they gathered, they bled, they cried. But they also laughed, they danced, they teased, they played. They found joy in the shape of a feather. They didn't wait for happiness. They made it. Out of stones, out of stories, out of one another. As the night deepens, we return once again to our cave. The fire has died to a glow. A dog snores softly, her feet ache. Her hands are rough, but her heart is light. She remembers the look on her friend's face when she surprised her with a necklace. Remembers the way they all danced like fools in the moonlight. A child rolls over in sleep, murmuring something about frogs. The stars drift slowly overhead. Our cave woman, weary from a full day, wraps herself in fur. She remembers the silly song her daughter made up while they were grinding seeds, and she smiles. But on the hands, because even here, even now, even in a world of hunger and stone, there is joy. Tools, artifacts, and innovations. What they made and how it shaped their lives tonight, we focus not on the body, hands that shape the world, grain by grain, hands that learn not just to survive, but to create. Our cave woman's life was not defined only by the gathering, birthing, or cooking. She was not a passive creature, waiting for fire or shelter or sharp stone to be handed to her. No, she was a maker, a quiet innovator, a weaver of bone, earth, and idea. Let us slow our steps and enter her sacred workshop where survival met artistry and where the future was carved one strike at a time. We begin with the blade. Our cave woman crouched near the fire, carefully examining the results. She learned to angle the blow just so to peel away flakes like curls of wood, revealing edges that could slice meat or shave bark. It was not invented in a single stroke of brilliance. There were no triumphant cries of eureka echoing through the forests of prehistory. Instead, it was born through patience. Curiosity, repetition. Our cave woman knew every stage. Skinning, scraping, drying, softening. A flint core was struck again and again with a rounded hammerstone. Then came the brain, yes. The brain mixed with water to create a tanning solution. Time-consuming. Her stitches were tight, efficient, but sometimes, on the inside hem where no one would see, she added something extra. A swirl pattern, a hidden knot, a small design, smelly, but essential. Sometimes the flint cracked wrong and shattered. Sometimes the edge dulled too fast. Others bore chevron patterns or spirals. No two were the same, but she learned. They were technology. And so the skills spread like ripples in a still pond. Innovation. Passed from hand to hand, generation to generation. Over time, she didn't just use the tools, she made them. Animal hair spun into coarse yarn with a spindle made from a stick and a stone. A stash of deer sinew there, a length of smoothed antler wrapped in bark string. And so her workshop grew. She let them soak in water to soften, then wove them over and under, creating containers for carrying roots, berries, embers. Not with benches or toolboxes, but with small caches hidden under stones and in hollows. A pile of good flint here, thinking, watching, tending. Next came the hide. The animals provided more than meat. They gave fur for warmth, skin for shelters, bones for needles. The moment an animal was brought back from the hunt, the women began their work. She used sharpened stones to slice along the belly. Fingers worked carefully to separate hide from flesh. She kneaded the mixture into the hide, pressing, massaging, softening. It was hard labor. Later, when the hide was dry and pliable, she used bone needles to stitch it into cloaks, leggings, or baby carriers. Why? Not for survival, for beauty. The basket was next. She gathered reeds by the river, choosing only the flexible ones. Each basket took hours, sometimes days, but she wove them anyway. Some were plain. The baskets weren't just containers. A clever woman learned to twist grasses tighter, make seams waterproof, reinforce corners. She taught her daughter, then came the thread. Not thread like we know it, no cotton spools or sewing kits. Hers was sinew pulled from deer legs. Bark fibers pounded until they separated into long strands. She twisted them into cordage. Long, strong ropes that tied shelters, carried babies, hung dried fish. When the cord frayed, she repaired it. When it snapped, she made another. Thread was life, invisible but binding, much like the women themselves. And what a fire! The fire was sacred. Not just for warmth, but for light, food, safety, and community. She knew how to nurse it, how to cradle embers under moss, how to blow gently to bring it back from the brink of death. She fed it dried dung, bark, pine cones. She built hearths from stone, ringed with logs to protect the flame from wind. She taught her children never to play too close, but always to respect it. At night, when others slept, she sat beside it alone. Fire was a friend, a guardian, a partner. She didn't invent it, but she kept it alive. Cooking was innovation too. Roasting meat was easy, but boiling, it took imagination. She dropped hot stones into water-filled animal stomachs, heating the liquid slowly. She learned to suspend food over coals, to wrap roots in leaves and bury them in embers, to soothe a sore belly. She mixed wild herbs not randomly, but with purpose, to soften tough meat, to reduce the bitterness of bark flour. She experimented. Some combinations made her sick. Others were miraculous, a healer, an inventor of flavors. One bark brew stopped the spasms in her daughter's legs. Another calmed the fevers that came with winter. With her fingers, she painted symbols on cave walls, spirals, dots, handprints. Through cooking, she became a chemist. And when the smell of stew filled the cave, others came near, drawn not just by hunger, but by comfort. Others carved figurines from ivory or soft stone, wide-hipped goddesses, animals, birds. Then there was art. Not all tools were for cutting or carrying. Some were for the soul. Maybe stories, maybe prayers. She crushed ochre with stone, mixing it with fat or water to create pigment. We don't always know what they meant. Maybe they were maps, but they meant something. Some women used sharp flints to etch lines into bones. A mother, a face someone missed. They were sacred tools, used in ritual, healing, storytelling. One such figure, a small woman with heavy breasts and broad belly, has been found across continents. Perhaps she was a symbol of fertility, perhaps of power. She packed earth into floors, hung hides to block the wind, even dug small drainage trenches to keep water from pooling during storms. She was building a home, or perhaps she was a memory. Whatever she was, she lasted. Art endures. Because it is made of more than pigment, it is made of feeling, and what of sound. She made flutes from hollow bones, drums from stretched hide, rattles from seed pods. Others were mournful of melody, hummed to the stars when a child did not return. These were not toys. Some sounds were playful, a string twanged between two sticks, a rhythmic tapping of antlers on rock. Music helped her remember, helped her hope. Because when words failed, sound remained. The shelter was her design too. When the tribe moved, she chose the spot for the camp. Not too close to the river, not too exposed. She knew how to lash branches, how to layer bark, how to seal cracks with mud. She wasn't just making a tent. With every knot, she said, Here we are safe. With every layered wall, here we belong. She innovated in silence. No one carved her name into history. No bard sang songs of her rope weaving, her tanning, her flint shaping. But she changed the world all the same. Every tool she made someone's life easier. Every stitch she taught was passed forward. Every fire she kindled warmed generations. And what did she leave behind? Not much. The earth devours soft things. Her baskets are gone. Her fibers, her cloaks, her laughter, they vanished like smoke. But her mark remains. In the sharp edge of a flint blade found under dirt, in the cave paintings that still shimmer in ochre red, the rivers that spoke in gurgles and laughs, the trees that hummed quietly in wind, in the bone needle, no bigger than your pinky, that still carries the curve of her thumb. We carry her in every stitch of thread, in every cooked meal, in every home we build with love. She made the world livable. Before the children stirred, the ground was cold with dew. The earth smelled rich and deep, but she didn't shiver. This was normal, expected, trusted, before the men returned. Before the sun fully showed its golden face. And for that, she was not just a cave woman, she was an engineer. A scientist, an artist, quiet revolutionary whose tools carried humanity forward, one clever knot at a time. The world outside, nature, seasons, and the landscape they lived in outside the safety of the cave. The world breathes soft and slow, just like you. It does not rush, it does not shout. It lives, it whispers, it waits. This was the cave woman's true home, not the cave alone, but everything that surrounded it, the hills that rolled like sleeping animals. She did not own this land, she belonged to it. So tonight, as your thoughts grow heavy and the quiet draws near, come walk with her. Let us step softly through her world. It began with the morning. The sky turned from indigo to pearl. Mist curled low along the earth, catching in branches and spider webs like the breath of forgotten gods. Our cave woman woke early, always early. She stepped into the air barefoot. She sniffed the air rain had passed in the night. Birds stirred in the canopy. Deer flicked its tail near the tree line. Insects murmured, hidden in the grass. This was the hour she loved most, when the world felt clean, alive, possible. The land around her was not vast and nameless. To you, it might seem like one endless blur of green and rock. To her, it was a map. That bend in the river where the water curled back on itself was called Snake's Mouth, a good place for crayfish. That tall split tree, forever leaning east. Old Man's Spine. There were mushrooms nearby, but only in spring. That slope where moss grew thick even in winter, a sleeping woman. Warm soil, good for birthing. Every rise, every shadow, every rustle had meaning. She did not wander. She moved with purpose, and the land responded. The seasons were her calendar. There were no clocks, no numbered dates, but time was known, felt in the bones. Frogs croaked loud in the evenings, and the air smelled wet, mossy, hopeful. She carried baskets of berries under a relentless sun, stopping to sip from shaded brooks. Bees hummed thick in the meadows. Her skin darkened, her muscles firmed. Spring came with swollen rivers and fat buds. Spring meant greens to gather, roots to dig, children to birth. It meant danger to melting snow made for treacherous ground, but also promise. She welcomed it. Summer was fire and sweat. Summer meant long work, long days, full bellies. It was life at its most abundant. Autumn came creeping in cool at first, then sharp. Leaves turned dry, brittle, blood-colored. Watch birds fly south in great crying waves. She gathered in hazelnuts, bark tubers, stored food, dried skins, wrapped babies tighter. Autumn meant preparation, wisdom, the whisper that change was coming. And then winter, healing, waiting. The sky turned steel. The wind was knife-like. Her breath smoked in the air. She stayed close to the fire, layering hides, keeping embers alive through long, starless nights. Snow sealed the world in silence. Winter was hunger, cold, huddled bodies. But it was also story time. Year turned not on paper, but on feeling. And she knew every beat of it. She knew the stars, too. At night, when the fire was low and others slept, she lay on her back and watched the sky breathe. She did not give the stars scientific names, but she knew their stories. She stepped where roots curled like snakes and leaves crunched beneath her. The three bright ones in a line, the hunter. The cluster of tiny ones nearby, his children hiding. When the hunter rose higher in the sky, she knew winter was near. When the red one dipped low, she knew to start digging tubers again. The sky was a calendar, a clock, a myth. She sang to the moon, sometimes low, wordless lullabies. Perhaps for her children, perhaps for herself. Above her, the stars shimmered in ancient rhythms. They didn't guide ships or kings, but they guided her. The forest was not wild. It was familiar. She walked it daily, barefoot or in high-drapped feet. She didn't fear the trees. Others were warm and mineral-rich, good for soaking sore feet. She listened to them. Poplar made a soft, breathy sound in wind. Pine whispered. The oak creaked like a boat in storm. She knew where birds nested, where the good bark grew, where the snake slept, curled in sun. She moved like a shadow, neither loud nor slow, just part of it all. When she touched a tree, she often paused, hand resting on bark, eyes closed. Not praying, not asking, just acknowledging. Water was sacred. Noted where birds nested low or high, not just for thirst, but for healing, washing, listening. Owls were wise appearing only when the forest was still. Turtles were patient moving slow, but never wrong. She knew every stream in spring. Some were cold and fast, good for fish. Just watching. She watched water's moods, how it rose with the moon, how it hissed in storm, how it stilled in heat. Children played near the edges, but never too deep. Water could bless but also take. When she bathed her baby, she sang softly, the same tune every time, passed down from her own mother. When she filled a gourd for cooking, she always tasted first. Checked the color, smelled the wind. Water gave life, but it demanded respect. Animals were neighbors, not enemies. She feared some. The wolves who watched from afar, the boars that charged in rage, the bears who woke too early from sleep. But most, she understood. She watched deer paths, saw how squirrels stored food. Each animal taught something. Foxes were clever good to mimic when hiding. Sometimes she left food near anthills, watching how they swarmed. There was no need to name everything, just to learn it. She did, every day, in silence and in stride. Storms were not feared, they were honored. When dark clouds gathered, she drew children close. She checked the roof hides, tucked embers deep, shut the cave mouth with brush. Then she waited and listened. Lightning lit the sky white, rain drummed in rhythms, fast, then soft, then wild again. Thunder rolled low like a great beast. She whispered old words not in fear, but in memory. Storms reminded her she was not in control, and yet she was not helpless either. She belonged here. She adapted. She endured. The world outside was not something to escape. It was her story. The wind was not just background, it told her when the rains came. The soil wasn't just grounded, held her past and fed her future. The moon wasn't decoration, it was a companion. She knew better. Each part of nature held a lesson, a gift, a warning. She did not take more than she needed. She knew that the river gives, but also floods. That the forest shelters, but also burns. That the earth feeds, but also forgets. And yet she loved it all, because it was home. And so, every day, she stepped outside, not to conquer, not to escape, but to live, to breathe, to walk, to notice. She followed the light of morning, the scent of berries, the pull of memory. She planted no flag, but she belonged utterly and completely. Not just what she touched, but what touched her soul. And every leaf, every ripple, every bird call whispered back, "You are part of this. You always were." Wonderful traveler, you've walked quietly beside her through the long days of work. The lessons passed through touch and rhythm. The songs carried by wind and fire, and the vast wilds outside her cave that cradled her like a living, breathing world. Now we go deeper into the shadows where memory and myth intertwine. She grinds it slowly between stones, humming softly. A sound without words, but full of meaning. Tonight, as you rest your bones under blankets and your breath grows soft and slow, let us explore not what the cavewoman saw, but what she believed. This is not a place for certainty. There are no written scrolls, no carved tablets, no sacred books passed down. Only stones, bones, pigments, silence, and mystery. And we can still feel what she may have felt. So lie back. Close your eyes and let the spirits of the ancient world drift around you. Rituals, spirits, and the unseen. How cave women understood the mysteries of life and death. She kneels in the dirt. Her hands are stained red, not from blood, but from ochre, that deep, rusty pigment drawn from the earth itself. The others watch in silence. Even the fire holds still. In the center of the circle lies something small and wrapped bones, perhaps, or a carved figure, or a dried herb bundle tied with sinew. The wind outside moans gently. Inside, the air thickens, not with fear, but with presence. Real grief, crying, silence, days of heavy hearts. They are not alone. They never were. Long before God's war crowns or spoken commandments, the cave woman knew there was something more. She could feel it in the stillness of the forest after a storm. She could see it in the flicker of flame that danced too deliberately to be random. She could hear it in dreams that came like visitors, carrying messages that felt older than her own body. The world was not empty. It was inhabited by spirits, memories, forces she could not name, but could always sense. Death was not an end. When a child was lost to fever, when an elder stopped breathing during the night, when blood spilled and the body-stilled grief came, yes, but also ceremony. They did not bury the dead casually. It chose places high hills, hidden rock shelves, deep earth with flowers placed gently. Sometimes red ochre was painted across the bones. Sometimes beads were laid beside the body, or tools or meat. Why, perhaps to guide them to another place, maybe because they never truly left. To the cave woman, the dead were still with her, in the wind, in the smoke, in the stories told by firelight. Rituals came not from rules, but from rhythm. No, two were exactly the same, but patterns emerged. She might hum a certain note when preparing a burial, note taught by her mother, one that stirred something deep inside. She might light a second fire when her child reached a new season, walking, speaking, hunting. She might place stones in a circle around a woman in labor, not for protection alone, but to mark the moment, to say, this is sacred, this is a doorway. Her rituals were not superstition. They were reminders that life was more than hunger and work, that the unseen mattered just as much as the seen. Dreams were not meaningless. She dreamed of a bear, she would not hunt the next day. She dreamed of her dead mother. She would sit by the stream, speaking softly to the water. Dreams are not random. They were messages, sometimes warnings, sometimes gifts. Some dreams were shared aloud, others kept secret. The elders knew which to speak and which to carry silently. In dreams, she might meet animals that spoke with human voices. She might see herself as a bird, flying above her own home. She might see fire in the sky, and later, when lightning struck a tree, she would remember the dream and nod. Not in surprise, in understanding. The cave itself was a sacred space, not just shelter, not just a roof. It was a womb, place of darkness and rebirth. She may have known this without words, but her actions revealed her knowing. She painted on the walls not carelessly, but with purpose. Figures of bison, deer, hands, spirals, dots, symbols that held stories. Maps of inner and outer worlds. Echoes of something larger than herself. By firelight, the images danced, shadows moved, time bent. The child on her lap saw the animal leap on the wall and gasped. To her, it was just as real as the hunts of the day, because spirit was not separate from life. It was life. Birth was sacred. When a woman went into labor, the cave shifted. Voices quieted. Children were sent away. Fire burned steady. Other women gathered. Older ones, midwives in all but name. Hands held, cloths formed. Herbs chewed and fed between contractions. Cries filled the space, not of pain alone, but of power. Birth was seen as a passageteer in the veil. A moment where two worlds touched. When the baby emerged, wet and howling, it was met not with clinical silence, but with joy, rhythm, heat. Sometimes a name was not spoken until a full moon had passed. Why? because names had power, and the unseen needed time to know the child. There were no priests, but there were keepers of wisdom. Old women with cloudy eyes who remembered the stories no one else did. Hunters who saw visions in fire and returned changed. Children who heard songs in dreams and sang them aloud the next day. Spiritual leadership was fluid, not fixed in robes or temples. Sometimes it was a grandmother who knew how to mix roots for fever. Sometimes it was a boy who danced without stopping, possessed by something larger. She respected these people not because they ruled, but because they listened. To the wind, to the bones, to the mystery that lived between things. Fire was a spirit. She fed it, thanked it, feared it. When she lit a new flame, she might blow gently and whisper a word, not for anyone else to hear, but for the flame itself. She used fire to cook, to protect, to warm, but also to speak. She stared into it at night, seeing images that came from nowhere. She placed herbs in it and watched the smoke curl upward, carrying messages to something unseen. When someone died, a fire was kept burning all night, to light their way, perhaps, or to remind the living, the spirit still lingers. Illness was not just physical. A child who stopped speaking was not sick. They were touched. Someone had to cleanse them through smoke, song, isolation. A woman who bled too long was not just wounded. She might have seen something she should not have. Healing was done with touch, yes, but also with belief, with ritual, with story, with time. Sometimes the healer chanted. Sometimes she placed stones in a circle. Sometimes she waited silently, letting the unseen do its work. It did not always work, but when it did, the whole cave rejoiced, because healing wasn't just survival. It was spiritual balance restored. The night sky was not empty. It was filled with ancestors, with watchers, with eyes. She told her children that their grandmother was a star now. She pointed to a slow-moving light and said, "That's the old elk spirit, walking still." She didn't need to believe it literally. She just knew. It meant something, and that meaning was enough. In the end, everything was connected. The rock was not just a rock, it had memory. The river was not just water, it had voice. The wind was not just air, it had intention. She did not worship in temples. She lived in one. The world was the sacred space, and she was not separate from it. She was a thread in its great eternal weave. So, traveler, as you rest now, soft and silent, let the rituals of long ago wash over you. Imagine the warmth of the fire, the steady chant, the scent of herbs. Let your own breath become prayer. You too are part of something ancient, and the cave woman, though long gone, would recognize you if you dream, you love, you wonder, you remember. Yes. You awaken in the dark, not because of a clock or command, but because the wind shifts and brushes across your cheek like a whisper. You are not alone. Your child's breath is slow and even, curled into your side. Beside you, two more women stir in sleep, one snoring faintly, the other mumbling in a dream. Only? Embers remain, pulsing softly like the last heartbeat of the night. The fire in the center of the cave has burned low. You rise slowly so as not to wake the others. You stretch quietly, your back stiff from the stone floor and woven grass mats beneath. Outside, the sky has only just begun to blush at the edges. Dawn. Time to begin. It bites, but you're used to it. You wrap a leather skin across your shoulders and walk toward the small stream that cuts near the cave. A bird calls from somewhere in the trees, you know that call. It means the berries are ripening near the rock ledge. Morning, gathering, feeding, preparing. You slip past the others and out into the cold air. Sparks leap like stars. You crouch, scoop the cool water in your hands, and drink deeply. The stream smells of wet leaves and fish. You smile. That's where you'll go today. Back inside, the cave slowly comes to life. Children whine for warmth. Someone adds wood to the embers. You hand a small carved bowl of soaked roots to an elder with shaking hands. She nods her thanks without speaking. Breakfast is not a grand affair. It never is. It has dried meat, pounded nuts, and boiled greens. Still, it fills your belly and sharpens your senses, which ones only the old dreamers dared to eat. Before long, you're on the move again. A few women and one older girl follow you into the woods. You've brought woven baskets, stone blades, and your memory of where the mushrooms grew last season. You remember which were safe, which made your cousin sick. The forest is your map, your pantry, your pharmacy. Every leaf has a story. Midday, work, rest, and watchfulness. As the sun climbs, the forest warms. You find the berry ledge easily and begin plucking the ripest ones with practiced fingers. The younger girl eats half of hers before they even make it to the basket. You chuckle and flick a leaf at her. Far off, you hear shouting male voices. You've seen what can happen when a snake hides in the grass. When a stranger walks too close to the cave, and the hunt returns with empty hands and sunken eyes. A hunting party? Or a warning? You pause. Listen. Nothing follows. You resume your work, but slower now. Ears open. Eyes cautious. Safety is never a guarantee. You know this, so you remain alert. But you do not let fear rule you. You know this land. You know yourself. You finish gathering and head back, feet aching from the uneven terrain.
Afternoon.
Teaching, mending, making back at the cave. The men return. A few carry small, kills a rabbit, a bird, and something larger wrapped in hide. No list, no clock. Just the slow, sacred turning of life. And you are part of it. Not separate, not superior. Cahan Prek might say. I was here. Symbols were early writing. They spoke to the future. Inviting those who came after to understand, memory was honored, without written records. Remembering was an art. They knew which roots could heal wounds, which leaves soothe fevers, and which berries brought sickness. They developed ways to recall long stories, repeating rhythms, gestures, songs. This oral tradition kept their world alive. Social bonds were carefully maintained. Stories and rituals strengthened ties. Aspirin, for example, has its roots in willow bark, a remedy known and used in prehistoric times. Sharing food, fire, and song made the group resilient. They recognized that humans were part of a vast, interconnected web, not rulers over nature, but participants in its flow. They depended on each other, not just for survival, but for belonging. Her legacy is everywhere. But of the group, working together to build shelters and gather resources, set the stage for the complex societies that followed. Though she left no monuments, her culture shaped ours. Every tale we tell, every song we sing, every symbol we carve echoes her silent work. She built the foundation. So as you rest now, let the gentle weight of her story settle in. She is more than a shadow in the past. She is the quiet heartbeat beneath your own. Imagine, if you will, a thread stretching through time along. An unbroken line that connects the quiet footsteps of cave women walking in ancient forests to your own life today. This thread is woven not of gold or precious metals, but of something far more enduring. Knowledge, resilience, care, and an unspoken understanding of how to live in harmony with the world. Though the cave women lived thousands of years ago before written language or cities, their wisdom still courses beneath the surface of our modern existence in ways we often overlook, but can feel deep in our bones. The power of storytelling. The first libraries, the stories told by cave women, were more than tales to pass time around a fire. They were the first libraries, the first history books, the first lessons in morality and survival. Without paper or ink, knowledge was carried in memory, held in rhythm, song, and repetition. Every time a mother told her child how to gather safe berries or how to watch for changing seasons, she was passing down essential survival skills. When she recounted stories of fierce animals or the spirits that roamed the land, she was teaching respect and caution. This oral tradition laid the foundation for language itself. It is no coincidence that many of our oldest myths, legends, and folk tales echo themes found in prehistoric art and storytelling. The cave women's voices, though silent now, still sing in the stories that shape who we are. Just woven in, like thread in a basket, like echo in a cave, like firelight on stone, as you drift now into your own rest. Let her walk beside you. She who rose before the sun, she who sang with no words, she who mended, taught, gathered, grieved. Her life was not grand, but it was whole. Imagine a world without books, without writing, without screens or sound machines. A world where knowledge, wisdom, and history did not exist in ink or stone tablets, but in the breath, the voice, the gesture of living people. This was the world of the Cavewoman. Her culture was not recorded with pens or chisels, but with memory deep, rich, and carefully guarded. She was a living library. Stories were her language. Not stories like the novels we know today, but oral tales that passed from mouth to ear, generation to generation. She told of the hunt and the seasons, of the great animals that roamed before, of the spirits who watched over them. She told stories to teach the young how to survive, how to behave, how to respect the land and each other. These stories were more than entertainment, they were instruction manuals. Without them, knowledge would be lost. Songs were woven into stories. Her voice rose and fell in chants and melodies. Songs told of birth and death, joy and sorrow. Songs healed wounds both physical and of the heart, bound the group together. A song sung alone was fragile, but a song sung in a circle by many voices was strong. It made the tribe whole. Art was a language without words. She painted symbols on cave walls and carved figures from bone and ivory. These images were not mere decoration. They were memory maps. Places to remember, events to recall, spirits to honor. Art made the invisible visible. It connected past and present. It was a bridge to what came next. Ceremonies gave structure to time. Even without calendars, they marked important moments. The birth of a child, the first hunt, the passing of seasons. Gatherings around fire were not just for warmth. They were communal rituals, a way to remind everyone of their shared existence. Teaching was a sacred duty. Mothers, grandmothers, and elders passed knowledge down patiently. How to make tools, how to read the land, how to care for the sick. Every lesson was a thread in the fabric of culture. No one was left behind, not much, but enough for stew. Sit by the fire now, weaving reeds into a basket with your daughter watching you closely. She mimics your movements clumsily, and you gently guide her fingers. Every movement you make is a lesson. It's not spoken, shown. Nearby, another woman is repairing a tear in someone's hide coat with sinew and a carved bone needle. She hums as she works. Children play with sticks and stones, turning them into spears and dolls, mimicking what they see, learning without being told they are learning. An old man coughs. You bring him a root to chew. He blesses you with a hand gesture your mother taught you when you were small. You sit for a while in silence, watching the way the smoke curls upward into the open sky of the cave mouth. Evening, food, stories, and firelight. The fire is fed again, this time for cooking. Stones are heated, and the meat is placed atop them with handfuls of herbs and salt scraped from dried riverbeds. The smell is rich and calming. You sit with the others in a circle, legs stretched out, children in laps. Someone begins a story. It's about the animal who used to be a man. Or was it the man who turned into the moon? No one interrupts. No one questions the logic. The point is not the details. It's the rhythm, the warmth, the memory passed down. The story winds on as the fire pops and cracks. You chew slowly, thoughtfully, more for the comfort of the act than the hunger itself. Your daughter leans into you, eyelids heavy. Someone laughs softly. Another mimics an animal call from the story. The cave echoes with ancient joy. Not loud, not wild, warm, night, sleep, protection, and the dream world you help clean up the bones, placing them near the refuse pile or saving some to carve into tools later. The fire is banked, kept alive for warmth, but not fed too high. The men take turns watching the entrance. Tonight is not your turn. You lie back beside your daughter, tucking her under your arm. She murmurs something, a question perhaps. Why do stars move? Do you think for a moment and say what your mother once said? Because they re-walking with us. She closes her eyes and sighs. The cave grows quiet. Outside an owl hoots. Inside breath slows. Dreams gather. You are tired. Your bones ache. Your belly is full. Your child is safe. You have done what needed to be done. Tomorrow it begins again. The stream, the forest, the fire, the circle. There is no calendar. Symbols carried power. Spiral painted on a wall might mean water. It's wisdom in nature. Early ecology and medicine, the knowledge cavewomen held about plants, animals, and the natural cycles was profound. This wasn't mere guesswork. It was careful observation passed from generation to generation. It was the earliest form of medicine, ecology, and agriculture. Modern science is still uncovering the power of many plants once gathered and used by ancient peoples. Their understanding of animal behaviors and migration patterns allowed them to hunt sustainably and avoid dangers. In many ways, cave women were the first environmentalists. Cooperation and community. Foundations of society, the social structures cave women helped sustain, are the roots from which human communities grew. Their cooperative spirit sharing food, caring for children not only of their own, but of the group. Working together to build shelters and gather resources set the stage for the complex societies that followed. The idea that survival depended on unity, empathy, and shared responsibility remains true today. Even in our bustling modern cities, the echoes of those ancient bonds are found in community gatherings, family rituals, and shared celebrations. The cave woman's quiet work in maintaining social harmony ensured not only survival, but the flourishing of culture. Innovations in tools and shelter. The dawn of civilization while men may have hunted. It was often cave women who crafted tools, shaped materials, and built the shelters that protected entire groups. Their innovation was practical and brilliant, developing ways to sharpen stones, weave fibers into nets, and construct homes that could withstand wind, rain, and cold. Advancement, small or large, became a stepping stone toward civilization. These innovations remind us that progress is often a collective endeavor built from the patient, creative hands of many. Our modern tools, though far more complex, owe a debt to the ingenuity of these first builders, the sacred and the spiritual. The roots of religion and art, cave women's rituals. Art and ceremonies planted the seeds of spirituality and religion. The symbols painted on cave walls, the ceremonies performed to honor birth, death, and the cycles of nature show a deep engagement with mystery and meaning. This is the beginning of what we now call culture, the search for purpose beyond mere survival. Their art was not decoration. It was a dialogue with the unseen, a way to connect with ancestors and spirits. Today's religions, philosophies, and artistic traditions are branches grown from these ancient roots. The enduring role of women in culture? Far from being passive bystanders, they were central to the survival and flourishing of their groups. Their roles as gatherers, healers, teachers, and ritual leaders were vital. Their wisdom in managing resources, nurturing children, and sustaining social bonds shaped the human story in profound ways. Recognizing this legacy invites us to appreciate the contributions of women throughout history and today. Lessons for today. Living with balance and respect in a world dominated by rapid change and technological advances, the cave woman's legacy reminds us to slow down and reconnect with nature's rhythms. Their deep respect for the environment, sustainable use of resources, and community cooperation offer valuable lessons. We are still learning what it means to live in balance with the earth, and their example lights the way. From sustainable farming to community-based living, the wisdom of cave women is not ancient relic, but urgent guide. The unbroken thread. As you breathe now, feel the unbroken thread that ties you to those first women who lived, loved, and labored beneath open skies. Their stories, skills, and spirit are your heritage. You walk in their footsteps. Their legacy is alive in your kindness, your creativity, your curiosity. Each moment you honor your body, your community, or the earth, you echo their ancient song. So, traveler, as your eyes grow heavy and your breath slows, know this. The cave woman's story is not just history, it's just living in you, in me, in all of us. It was harsh, unpredictable, and demanding, but through it all, they endured. They adapted. They thrived. Final reflections. What cave women teach us about resilience and humanity. As the fire's glow dims and the night stretches long, it's time to look back on the path we've walked together. From the first moments of dawn to the deepest mysteries of spirit, we've traced the footsteps of cave women whose lives were simple yet profound, ordinary yet extraordinary. But the steady, patient kind that carries a family through cold winters and long nights, their world was not easy. This endurance, this resilience is, perhaps, their greatest legacy. Resilience in the face of hardship, cave women faced threats daily, weather that could freeze or flood. Predators lurking unseen, illness without medicine, hunger without stores, and yet they rose every morning. They gathered food, cared for children, healed wounds, and protected their families. Their strength was quiet, but unyielding. In their lives, we find the first lessons in resilience, not the loud kind celebrated in epic tales. Community and connection, they remind us that no one survives alone. From sharing the fire to teaching the young, from mourning the dead to celebrating new life, cave women understood that humanity is a collective journey. Their social bonds were lifelines. They teach us that connection is as vital as food or shelter. In our own lives, where isolation can sometimes creep in, remembering this can be a balm for the soul. The power of adaptation, their world changed slowly but surely. Climates shifted, animals migrated, and new challenges arose. Cave women adapted, not just physically, but mentally and spiritually. They learned new skills, passed on new knowledge, embraced change as part of life's rhythm. Their flexibility ensured survival. We too can learn from this grace-welcoming change, learning from it and growing stronger. The value of simplicity in their lives, nothing was wasted. Every plant, every stone, every moment was valued. They lived close to the earth, attuned to its gifts and demands. Their simplicity was not deprivation, it was intentional. It reminds us that richness comes not from abundance, but from mindful presence. In a world filled with noise and excess, their example invites us to slow down, appreciate small things, and find contentment in the everyday. Spirituality and mystery, though lacking written religion, cave women lived deeply spiritual lives. Their rituals, art, and stories showed reverence for the unseen forces shaping their world. This respect for mystery, this acceptance of the unknown, is a powerful lesson for us. In times of uncertainty, embracing mystery with humility and wonder can be a source of peace. The enduring role of women, their stories reclaim the essential place women have held since the dawn of humanity. They were creators, nurturers, leaders, and innovators. Recognizing this helps us appreciate the strength and wisdom women bring to the world today. It encourages us to honor these contributions in all spheres of life. Hope and continuity. Finally, cave women's legacy is a story of hope. Though their names are lost, their spirit endures. They laid the foundations for the world we inherit. Their courage in the face of unknown challenges, their care for each other and the earth, their creativity and resilience, they all ripple through time. We are their descendants, not only in blood but in spirit. So, traveler, as you drift now toward rest, carry with you these reflections. Remember that resilience is found in quiet endurance. That connection is life's true currency. That simplicity can be a wellspring of joy. That mystery need not be feared. And that the women who walked these ancient lands are part of your story always. May their strength steady you. May their wisdom guide you. And may their legacy inspire you. Good night, traveler. Sleep well. And until we meet again, may your dreams be peaceful and your heart light.